So, your business is growing. You need a big, critical piece of equipment to take things to the next level. The question is, do you buy it or do you lease it? Now, this isn't just about the price tag. It's a huge strategic decision. And in this explainer, we're going to break down that high-stakes choice between leasing and buying.
All right, here's our game plan. First, we'll set the stage with the big decision itself. Then, we'll get really clear on what a lease actually is. And, this is important, the two very different types you'll encounter. After that, we'll put leasing and buying head-to-head, look at the pros and cons, run the numbers on an actual example, and wrap it all up with how you can make the smartest choice for your business. So, let's start with section 1, the big decision. Look, this is about way more than just getting a new machine. This is about how you finance your company's future. The right asset can absolutely be a game changer, but getting it the wrong way, well, that can seriously hurt your cash flow. So, picture this. You need that new piece of manufacturing equipment, that fleet of delivery trucks, those high-end servers. It's essential. You literally can't grow without it. So, what's the play? How do you get that asset in the door and making you money? Well, you've really got two main roads you can go down. You can borrow the money and buy it. That's the classic path to ownership. Or you can lease it, where you're essentially just paying for the use of the asset without ever owning it. And this is a really, really important idea. For a lot of businesses, the real value comes from using the equipment, not necessarily from having your name on the title. To make the right call here, we've got to be crystal clear on what we're even talking about. So, what exactly is a lease?
At its core, a lease is just a contract. It's a pretty simple agreement. You have the lessor, that's the owner of the asset, and the lessee, that's you, your company, the user. The lessor agrees to let the lessee use their asset for a specific amount of time. In return, the lessee makes regular payments. That's it. It's really that straightforward. And the way it works is also pretty simple. First, your company figures out exactly what it needs. Then, you go to the leasing company, the lessor, and they go out and buy that asset for you. From there, you just start using it and make your regular payments to them. They handle the big purchase, you handle putting it to work.
Okay, but here's where things get interesting, and you really need to pay attention. The word lease isn't a one-size-fits-all term. There are two fundamentally different types, and picking the wrong one can be a huge mistake. On one hand, you've got an operating lease. Honestly, the best way to think about this is like renting. It's usually short-term, you can often cancel it, and the owner takes care of maintenance. This is perfect for stuff like computers or office equipment that gets outdated fast. On the other hand, you have a financial lease. Now, this is a whole different beast. This is much more like a loan. It's long-term, you're locked in, and you are responsible for all the upkeep. We're talking about massive assets here, like aircraft, heavy machinery, or even an entire factory. All right, so now that we've got the lay of the land, let's throw these two options into the ring. It's time for a classic pros and cons showdown, lease versus buy. Let's kick things off with the good stuff. Why would any company choose to lease something instead of just owning it? What's the upside? It really boils down to financial flexibility and cutting down your risk. First, and this is a big one, you don't need a huge chunk of cash up front. That capital can be used for other things like marketing or hiring. Second, you avoid the obsolescence trap. If you're leasing tech, you can just get the new model when your lease is up. It also keeps your books looking cleaner by not adding a bunch of debt, and your lease payments can often be written off as a business expense, which lowers your tax bill. Of course, it's not all sunshine and roses. There are definitely some trade-offs to think about. So, what are the potential traps or disadvantages of leasing? Well, for starters, leasing is often more expensive over the long haul. I mean, the leasing company has to make a profit, right? That's built into your payments. You also don't build any equity. At the end of the term, you just hand the keys back, even if the equipment is still worth a lot of money. You also give up control. You can't just modify or upgrade the asset whenever you want. And finally, you lose out on a major tax benefit of ownership, depreciation. Okay, so strategy and flexibility are one thing. But at the end of the day, for many, this decision comes down to the cold, hard numbers. You've got to figure out which path is actually truly cheaper. And to do that, you have to compare the total amount of cash you'll spend for each option. But, and here's the trick, you can't just add up the payments. $1 today is worth more than $1 5 years from now. So you have to calculate what all those future costs are worth in today's money. That's the only way you can do a true apples-to-apples comparison. So let's look at a case study from our source material. When they ran the numbers on a specific piece of equipment, the total cost of leasing, in today's money, came out to just over 3.1 million won. But the cost of borrowing the money to buy that same exact machine? Just over 2.3 million won. So what's the bottom line here? The difference is huge. After you factor in everything, the payments, the tax breaks, all of it, buying was over 844,000 won cheaper. In this case, the math points very clearly toward ownership.
But, and this might be the most important part of this whole explainer, the cheapest option on paper isn't always the smartest choice for your business. The final decision has to balance those numbers with your actual strategic needs. So here it is, your final checklist. These are the questions you need to be asking yourself. First, capital. Do you even have the cash for a down payment? Second, risk. Is this thing going to be a paperweight in 3 years? If so, leasing looks pretty good. Third, flexibility. Do you need to be able to upgrade on the fly? Fourth, taxes. Which path gives your company the better tax break? And finally, control. Do you need to be able to customize this thing? If you do, you've got to own it. And all of this leaves us with one last big question. We're often taught that ownership is the ultimate goal, right? But in today's business world, where being agile, managing your cash, and avoiding risk are key, maybe the smartest move isn't to own the asset, but to simply control it. The right choice is up to you.